Hello and welcome to the Content Advantage, a talk show about content with for content professionals, people like you, hopefully, information developers watching today's show. Welcome. My name is Scott Abel. I'll be your co-host for today's show. And I'd like to first say hello to my co-host, Megan Gilhooly. Megan, how are you today?
I'm good, Scott. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. I know that
You bet.
I know you're excited about today's show, so why don't you jump right in?
Yeah, so Scott and I are super excited about today's show because we get to have a chat with serial entrepreneur and publishing system designer Brian Alvey. Brian, welcome to the show.
Good morning. This is great.
So good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining. So I just wanted to kind of start with a topic that we had talked about. You are a big video guy. This is not really video related, but it's more I think sort of photo related. I saw that Apple came out with a patent, and that is for group selfies done virtually, meaning you can each take a different selfie and kind of put it together and come up with and look like you're all together. So this is something that came out of COVID. So I'm super excited to dive in to today's talk because we're going to talk about some things that maybe COVID created or some of the other news created that are more video related. So we're super excited about that. I don't know if you saw that Apple patent.
So you mentioned it. I saw a different patent they did around helping you see in your room better. So almost like augmented reality eyeglasses. But I've kind of given up. So I used to work with Engadget, and they would actually surf the patents that people would make, and they'd be finding these Apple things way early. So it was fascinating to see, but I just gave up because I can invent one great thing every 5 years, and they do 2 a week. So yeah, you just can't
so
keep
funny.
Up with Apple.
Right, exactly. Very cool. All right, Scott. We can't hear you, Scott. Nope, still can't hear you.
One more. There we go.
There we go.
It's a triple, click it.
Yes, yep. It must be my psychic energy. For the viewers that are just watching or joining us for the first time, here's a few things that you can do during the show. You can ask a question of us at any time by using the Ask a Question tab located in your webinar viewing panel. It's a text-based system that allows you to text us your question. We can't text you back, but I'll know that you've asked a question, and if we have some time, I'll try to slide it into the show. Also, you can access content at any time during the show using the attachments link located in your webinar viewing panel. There's some information about the guest, also about our show sponsor, Zoom In Software, and there's a special offer in there from XML Press offering 50% off of their entire library of ebooks for information developers. So check out that area, and if you've got any trouble using BrightTalk, there's some troubleshooting information located there as well. Today's show is brought to you by the software makers at Zoom In Software. You can learn more about their platform that's designed to help you deliver more personalized experiences by visiting them on the web at zoominsoftware.com.
All right, before we dive into the topics for today, which will be super interesting, Brian, can you just tell us a little bit about your connection to the field of information development?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because you guys use these words like information development and this, all this content architecture stuff. And I look at Scott as kind of like a PhD scientist in that world, and I'm absolutely not. I don't know all the lingo, but spiritually, we're brothers in a sense, right? He has to write things and convey things. He knows something other people don't know, and he has to make sure that they learn it, right? So that's his challenge. It's mine too. I build publishing platforms, content management systems. So if you've ever visited TMZ or Engadget, those are pretty much their whole lives run on software that I built. So I make software for teams to publish and really see everything as a publishing challenge. I wanted to be a comic book artist when I was a kid. It didn't work out, but making print magazines or building blogs turned out to be just as gratifying, and now video.
What products did you make?
So I had a platform called Blogsmith, which AOL bought a long time ago. A very funny, quick story is we had built a big blog company. It's skipping a whole lot of years of career, which thank God we're skipping all of that, because I've been on some shows where they start out in high school and what was your next job and this is your life, and like we get 2 years in and they're like, all right, show's over. So let's go straight to that one. So AOL a while back decided they needed blogs. This is 12 years ago. This is now ancient history. But we had built some sites, Engadget, Autoblog, Joystick, all these different websites. And they weirdly bought the blogs only, the properties, the actual publications. They didn't buy my software. And we spent about a year at AOL, and halfway through the year, they launched a site called TMZ on a really bad publishing platform. And so people don't talk about it much, but TMZ was on bad software for like a couple months, and it would take them 4 hours to get a story out. They would have breaking news, they would hit publish, it would go through legal clearance, all this stuff, and then it would come out 4 hours later, and they were scooped by the whole world, and you would have never known who they were. And they basically said, can we have what Brian and Engadget are using? And they got on my platform. AOL didn't own it. They kind of said, yeah, we have this great software. They didn't own it. And then a few months later, they ended up buying that platform from me. So that's one of the platforms I built, and a whole bunch of other ones. We redid Netscape. I built Capgemini, a whole bunch of different sites. Too many websites. Ancient.
And what about your latest adventure?
Yeah, so I've my whole career is about building software that makes creative people more powerful. So if you guys have a job you need to do, again, back to your technical documentation and your writing stuff, right? You have to explain something to these people, but these people have a job to do. They need to know how the thing you're doing, how the thing that they could buy, these 2 different chairs they're looking at, whatever it is, are going to make their lives better, right? That's me too. I'm specifically giving you software to make you publish faster, turn 7 clicks into 1 or 0 if I can, right? And so that's all evolved into social video. So you talk about these selfies and collaborating with people you can't be in the room with. Yeah. We have a product that lets you share an invitation link. Anybody in the world can open it on their phone. They can even open it inside a tweet or an Instagram story, and your fans, your customers, whoever they are, without leaving that app, that software, without installing anything new, can send you back video replies, and you're in control the whole time, building content, collaborating with other people around the planet. And it's called Answers RN. Let's not hide the name. It's called Answers RN. Like, get video answers right now. RN, internet lingo from the young.
Oh, that's what the RN stands for. I didn't realize that.
So
very cool.
Get video answers right now from anyone anywhere on the planet.
And what's the typical use case, say, pre-COVID for that?
So pre-COVID, it's absolutely how Taylor Swift or Pink are going to ask their fans a question, have them swipe up on an Instagram story, reply, have Pink or Taylor Swift or whoever be in control, or Metallica, let's go all across the board here, be in control the whole time. The content is completely safe for them. They get to have a moment with their fans get to have a moment with them. It's all about that. And but it's an open-ended collaboration platform. So if you're at a brand, if you have a big e-commerce site, you're thinking of testimonials and reviews and even help content, right? So pretty much it's an open-ended platform that people pour what they do, what they need to do into it. And they go, oh, this is for recruiting. And I go, no, it's not, but sure, you can use it for that.
Excellent.
Very cool.
So speaking of multiple use cases, it seems like everything that's happening in the world today is causing us to have to reimagine how we're going to work, how we're going to live, how we're going to play, and how we're going to socialize, and maybe even come together. Have you learned how your technology that you've developed might be able to be used in situations like the COVID-19 crisis or related to the protests in the United States?
Yes. So I'll give you a couple of answers. One of them is sort of like more emotional and like in my own head, but we pitched this, we had an old app and it didn't work the way people needed it to work. So we just released a new one based on some things that another company told us. Snapchat gave us some advice and we took it to heart and we made a new app. The COVID thing has been interesting because I pitched a couple hundred companies on using my old app. I went to, Spotify and a bunch of different companies, but Spotify in particular. I'm like, this is a way where you have access to all these stars. Their email addresses, their phone numbers. Send them a link. They install nothing. They send you back videos, show what their kids are wearing for Halloween. What are they eating today? Whatever the thing is. And you can get that content. And they basically told me, you are Spotify. We have a big building in New York City. Springsteen's downstairs right now. We have a big camera crew, makeup, lighting, all this stuff. We don't need you. Your app is cute, but we don't need it. And then COVID happens and they go, oh, remember that thing you showed us? And then we ghosted you and made you feel like you were worthless. And you emailed us 6 times like a schmuck. We need that now. So, sports teams and different people who they're like, we just walked down to the locker room and we have video of everybody. Now they're like, oh, yeah, we need to get video of these people in their houses and control the whole thing. And not only control it for our brand, but also control it for them. So we can vet it and make sure they don't say something crazy on the way out the door. So we give them a way to orchestrate that content, and it's finding surprising new use cases now. In terms of like the general world, video has never been, this important, right? Video is super important now. All the news that's happening right now and all the change that's being done, think about it. It happened because of a video. It didn't happen because of he said, she said, or anything else. It's not photos, it's video. Video is important. Real stories from real people change the world. I mean, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, video was certainly very compelling given the news that we've seen, whether it's COVID or the riots. I mean, just seeing the video makes it all very real. But we had talked a little bit earlier about some of the changes in the way that people use video to tell stories, or the way that video is consumed based on the lockdown, based on the riots. Can you kind of run through some of those changes you've seen in the video world?
Yes. So weirdly, Twitter is the place all this is happening, right? All videos end up on Twitter at some point. TikTok videos, I see them because people put them on Twitter, right? People find the good stuff, they put it on Twitter. So Twitter, real-time news, but real-time news showing you video is just off the charts important. And again, it's changing the world. A very smart investor I know called this the American Spring, the same way we had the Arab Spring, and social media changing that part of the world, right? It's a pretty big deal right now. But there's sort of your day-to-day stuff. If you think of memes and formats for tweets, and people saying just this and then linking to something, right? There's all these little formats for things. There are a lot of people who are doing sort of an intro tweet right now that says, hey, so Tim Curry did this because J.K. Rowling was trending for her, anti-trans messages and all this. And he goes, hey, I've never told anybody, but I was up for the role of Dumbledore, and I'm going to tell you a story I've never told about why I turned that down. And that's the first tweet. And you're like, okay, I'm in. I want to know, why did he turn this down? He would have made it, the guy from Rocky Horror Picture Show could have been Dumbledore. How crazy is this, right? And then all the rest of the links are just Black Lives Matter resources. So it's just kind of like that internet headline clickbait trick. Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting content. But this is, that's interesting now. That's attention getting now. And in a week, we're over it. We're immune to it. Some other trick will come out. So I'm not sure that anything changes per se, but video has never been more important. Let's go back to that.
Interesting.
Can you briefly, for people who don't know how they would use your tool, what's the steps that they go through briefly?
Oh, sure. You're the steps guy. You're the I'm explaining stuff to the world guy. Thank you. Good question. So very simply, we have a way. So let's take Scott. Give me a band that you love. Somebody you might reply to in video on social when they ask a question.
Pet Shop Boys.
Pet Shop Boys. Great. You picked somebody alive. Jimi Hendrix is a bad example. Great. Yeah. Pet Shop Boys. So Pet Shop Boys. They were recently named #1 in some BBC poll or something like that. Most important song ever, West End Girls. Yeah. And even Pet Shop Boys fans were like, first off, that's not even their best song. Second, that's not better than like Led Zeppelin and all these other things that come out of the UK. Right. Anyway, so the Pet Shop Boys might go and ask their fans, hey, what do you think of us being named the #1 song in the last 100 years, which is absurd, and which other one of our songs is even better than that, right? So they can ask that question. If they were to do that on Twitter or on Instagram without Answers RN, it'd be very hard to get videos back from their fans talking about the other songs they love, surfacing these stories about their connection to the Pet Shop Boys, having a moment with the Pet Shop Boys. Right. So when they ask you, hey, send us a video, you're like, I'm excited because you know what other song is better than West End Girls, the only song I know by them. And you're like, great, I want to send them a video. I'm in. So then they say, okay, put a video in the tweet below and hashtag it. Hashtags all go bad. They say, email it to us. Well, that's terrible. They're going to get 200 videos in 200 formats and not have the rights to them. It's a disaster. It's a mess. And then the other thing they say, which is the worst, is go download this app for a one-time video reply to the Pet Shop Boys. And what I like to joke is you would get their lyrics tattooed on your arm. You would take a bullet for them, but you're not going to install an app on your phone because your phone is safety for a one-time video reply to the Pet Shop Boys.
So true.
Long story short, we invented a way where they record their intro video. They get an invitation link. They put that in a tweet or an Instagram story. You swipe up on the Instagram story without leaving the Instagram story. You reply to them. The video goes back just to them, not to the whole world. They get to pick which ones to respond to and share out. They're in control the whole time. Their brand is safe. And at the end of the day, they do seconds of work, and you have a life-changing moment with them talking about the song that was your breakup song or your workout song or the story behind that song. And they acknowledge you and they pull you up on stage for a second and they go, Scott Abel, you're a Pet Shop Boys super fan and we appreciate you. Look, world, look at Scott. So that's what our product does. And it literally does it by creating a video, sharing a link, getting replies, answering them in the app, and then sharing out those videos.
It's about
that kind of takes personalization to a whole new level, doesn't it?
It's collaboration. You talk about that selfie patent, right? Taking people around the room, sticking them in the same photo. You know, the Kardashians do it all the time when somebody didn't make it for the photo shoot. They Photoshop them in. You know, all the magazines do it. So why not us?
It seems like it's that engagement topic that we keep talking about too. It gives people who are motivated to do so a way to interact with the brand that they're communicating with. So you know that some of the people in our audience, we call them information developers. There's like a big bucket, but we actually have technical communicators, content marketers, information architects, you know, people who do training materials. Can you think of any use cases for this technology that wouldn't be about stars necessarily, but might be able to help some of those information developers interact with their customers?
Yes. So I love the list you gave me because it's so many different kinds of people. It's crazy. And like I said, you can kind of pour whatever it is you're doing into what we do. You know, do you need more video from people? Do you need it private? Do you need it public? Right? We can do it either way, right? Depends. If you share the link publicly, you're doing a public thing. If you share it privately, you're doing it privately. Same thing on the final videos. So down that list, I mean, content marketing, I always go to first, right? We can do, for a brand, we can do influencer takeovers. But that goes back to celebrities, right? How do you get the Property Brothers making a bunch of videos with their fans for Lowe's or Home Depot? But for your sort of technical documentation and the how-to type stuff, there's just a variety of ways. So we talked to a scooter company in LA back when people used to be able to go places and use scooters. This has been a disaster for them. You know, they had to shut down for months. And what we were talking to them about before this all hit was, what if at the end of a scooter ride, you give them a link and you say, hey, give us some video feedback, right? We have a way where you can just drop a link into their app. It works. They don't have to build any infrastructure, build video capture and uploading all this junk into their app. And everything that comes in, we transcribe. So that's like our secret trick is, how do the Property Brothers go through 200 or 2,000 videos from fans? It's easy. We show you a picture and a caption. You just skim through it all. You don't have to watch 6 hours of video from people. You just skim through 2 minutes of text and you pick the ones you want to respond to. So back to the scooter company, what we said is, when a video comes in, it's one of two kinds of videos. One is the complaining customer. It ran out of energy. It didn't unlock fast enough. I was speeding along and the brakes locked up and I broke my ankle and I ran over a dog, right? Like all of that stuff, if you get that video and that comes in, you take that and you send it to customer service, your complaints department. You send it to that team to make the product better, to explain something better that people didn't understand. But if it comes in and I say, oh my God, I just rode a bird scooter. It was life-changing. It was like skiing and flying and like I'm high. I made it to my meeting early and I'm pumped and I made the sale, right? They take that video and they stick it right out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, right? That's your marketing content. So you can collect videos from anybody and then use them for what you need. And this is not, like my product specific. This is, a tactical thing. If you're getting videos from people, you want to triage that. You want to send the upset people to the people who can make them less upset, and the happy people to a place where you can show that off.
It seems like marrying this to machine learning, a la sentiment analysis, text-based mining, right, of the information, and then the automatic routing would allow us to do that at scale. Because of course there would be many scooters on the scooter network, and they would need to be able to do that in an efficient way as well. So the transcription seems like a smart thing to do.
So that's the thing. We have a 2-person team. so once we get some investor money, we'll add all your machine learning and all these things that you're talking about. I couldn't agree more. But it's a funny thing. The transcription is a good enough first step, right? And you skimming it and reading through these things, it kind of looks like Tinder, these screens. Here's 50 replies to, you know, the Metallica, and they just like skip, delete, report, skip, oh, answer this one, right? It really is that kind of a flow of going through people. But all the stuff you talked about, the machine learning, you can absolutely layer on top of this. It makes perfect sense to do that kind of automatic routing, and I can't wait to get there.
That's awesome. So,
you're muted, Scott.
I think we lost Scott again.
I'm back. You here?
Oh, go ahead.
Now I go on mute because I'm not touching anything. I promise. But there's the thing, maybe you don't even have to be the instigator of the development of the machine learning. Maybe just providing the raw transcription to a company that could receive it and process it could allow them to be more effective, right? It becomes the listening device for the scooter.
So 1,000%. We have a like an overlay engine that can bake those captions into the video, so we can actually hand you transcribed video with the words in the video as you're speaking them off to like a Gartner. So if you're doing surveys of 10,000 people or thousands of people, you can marry a sort of a video layer that gives you the emotional, you know, thing that you're trying to explain about the data, and then you can still have your pie charts and your graphs with the, you know, millions of data points on them. Totally.
Yeah, this is really, as a customer experience professional, I can see lots of use cases for using video in order to get feedback from customers real time. And so this is super interesting. What I really want to hear about, though, is, so you've built all these companies, right? And you've been a serial entrepreneur and in the content space. And so I'm wondering, do you have any lessons that you've learned from building this tool or other tools that some of our audience who are information developers could learn from?
Yes. So it's very funny. So I got to ask, actually, it was at one of Scott's conferences. They asked me, like, what book do I recommend? And I was like, oh my God, what an open-ended question. And it really depends, right? If you're trying to raise money, I can give you a book about that. If you're stuck on team and culture, if you're, you know, what end of the business are you in, right? So in terms of lessons, I mean, overall, just don't stop, don't give up. That's kind of the joke about a marathon, right? How do you run a marathon? You start running, just don't stop. Like, that's it. Simple, right? We should all do this. So being resilient, being perseverant, never giving up, believing in yourself is a really important skill. And the sad thing is you won't know until like 5 years after, when you should have actually stopped, you know, because there are times you should stop, you should give up. So I coach a lot of startups. I get to hear a lot of their pitches. I get to help them tune up their pitches and make them more investable, give them advice, mentor them, things like that. And that's really the biggest thing is, you know, everybody who succeeds just keeps working, keeps trying. They're getting themselves ready for that moment, because the second part of it is luck, timing and luck, right? So you have to put yourself in the right position, do all the work, and then get lucky. It's an interesting formula, and it's very hard to force.
You had talked before about some user acceptance lessons. What are some of the user acceptance lessons that you found?
You're using those PhD words again. Yes. So that's okay. I know.
Real people lessons. Real people.
No, well, that's the thing. So you know, in the last couple of years of working on the first app that we had, we got a lot of feedback from people. And, you know, as a founder, you get a ridiculous amount of feedback. People telling you, oh, you should add this. Oh, now make it do such and such. Even in a board meeting, you'll have two of the smartest people you know who are both wildly successful. One of them telling you, go after consumers. It's totally a consumer play. And the other one saying, this is an enterprise. Go SaaS. And you're like, these are completely, you know, these are different answers. And you have to take all that in and say, thanks. Thank you very much for all your feedback. And then you have to go with your gut and choose these things. So it's really hard, just looking back on these last few years. The biggest change between our old app and the new app, people asked for that. I didn't listen. You know, I did listen. I said, oh, that's a good idea, but that's not how we think this needs to work.
I'm going to do it. Right. Exactly.
Oh, right. And then Snapchat said, you know what? This would work so much better if, instead of combining all the 30 videos together that you get into one big, ugly, heavy piece of content, what if Taylor Swift answered each one as they came in and just picked the ones she wanted and left the rest in an inbox and didn't worry about them? And I was like, oh, good idea. And then the freaky thing is, after understanding, okay, this is something people want, And enough people have said that we need to do it, and we value their opinions, right? You weigh them all against each other and the time and the resources that we have. Then after we did that, we looked back and said, wait a minute, that means this other thing we were doing wrong. The whole, like, I can't even believe anybody ever used the first app and it ever worked. And like, I just couldn't believe it actually worked at all. And so I'm really excited about where we're going, but it's tough to know who to listen to. So you talk about user acceptance. You know, there's some companies that have a rule about, you know, until 2 people ask for something, we don't even put it in the, you know, the list, right? And then people have to vote on it. I'm not for sort of letting the internet vote on which way your product goes. You know, you wouldn't say Instagram does that. You wouldn't say Snapchat does that, but you do have to listen to them.
Yeah. And what this reminds me of is I oftentimes hear people say, well, I would use it, so therefore it's good, right? But I think what you're getting at is that might be if you fit the target audience, but you are not necessarily your customer, right? So you need to develop for your customer, not just for what you would want.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
I was going to say, you missed the things that you've discovered. I see your eyes light up when you recognized that there was a change that you had to make, and then you made it, even though you didn't feel like you should at first. And then when you realize that was the right decision, I've heard you time and again say, that's the thing you have to admit. You know, so I think our information developers have the same kind of problem. They have a mastery of words and communication, and sometimes what they believe to be the best approach isn't the one that will fit the customer's scenario in the best way possible.
Yeah, it's a superpower to be able to get out of your own head and into someone else's head. And that's the stuff you guys talk about doing, right? Mm-hmm. I can't write it. Like, if I explain my app, it's very hard to simply explain the app without going, well, 5 years ago we started a crowdfunding platform, then we pivoted, and then I found Max, and then we built this. He showed me this thing. Like, nobody cares. So we when we coach entrepreneurs on pitching on stage and in startup competitions, things like that, the most important thing, there are 2 really important things. One is connect with the audience, explain what it means to them. And the best way you can do that is no intro at all. Just start showing the product. Right. And that's the hardest thing in the world for an entrepreneur to do. They want to tell you about the investors. I used to work in the New York Times reviewing restaurants. That's why I built Food 52, and that's why it's going to be big. And like, that's great. So maybe there's one thing in your background that matters to make this relevant to people, but get out of the way, show the product, and get into the other people's heads and show them how it's going to change their life. So when people ask me what my app does in an elevator on the street or something, it's a video platform, kind of works like this. Tell me what you do. And then we spend another 5 minutes hearing about them, their struggles, whatever. Then I tell them what the app does, and they go, oh my God, collecting videos from like my customers. I needed this at my last job and my job before that. You know, that we hear this all the time. So that's an interesting thing. But if you can't put yourself in their head, you can't explain anything to them. And to be able to write like that is a superpower.
Maybe the 3 of us have that nodding of the head thing going on because we were raised around journalism too, where they taught us that nut graph is the most important thing. Like, spit it right out, then go ahead and tell us the rest of it. Because if I don't want to know, I'm not going to read any further. And I think you were on to something there. Because we have a couple minutes before the show's over, and I know that Megan still wanted to talk to you about your biggest aha, but there's a question from the audience that I think is relevant to what we were just talking about. They asked, could your app be used to promote a music artist or like a video with their video productions, the things that they're doing on video?
Yeah, so it actually comes from that. I mean, it's like a softball question. Like, yes, please, I want to have a video moment with Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. That's why I built my app. But for everybody else, yes, if you have a Patreon and you have paid fan club members, if you have behind the scenes footage, the whole point of this is to say, hey, ask me anything about my process. Let me take you into my studio. Let me bring you in and give you access. So we talk about the 3 A's. We haven't mentioned that at all, but there's access, attention, and acknowledgement. So if you're a musician, your fans want access, attention, and acknowledgement. The access is showing them the 2 album cover choices we're thinking about, showing them the dress I'm thinking about wearing to the awards, right? Letting them behind the curtain, right? The attention is, oh my gosh, when I get a video from Megan, I have that same headset. I love that one. That's a whatever, and having that moment, right? I know it's very stylish. And then the third one is that acknowledgement, right? So for those musicians to make a video with a fan, we let them do it in seconds. But what's the benefit? How many years for the rest of your life you're going to talk about that moment you had with the Pet Shop Boys? The minute where you were in their Twitter feed, your face, you were up on stage with them basically in their socials. That's a huge thing. So if you're a musician, if you have videos, if you have a studio, if you have any, just bring your fans in, make them a part, access, attention, acknowledgement, 100%.
Do you feel like, I was just getting a feeling, it was kind of weird. I was picturing myself in a concert, and then I recognized that when I was there, I took a souvenir with me. I bought a shirt, I took the program. If there was a poster, I tried to snatch it, right? Because whatever humans do for that, we love that music artist, so we collect those things. This gives them kind of a digital souvenir.
So that's having a moment right now. Cameo is a big company where you can get a one-way shout out from a star. Ours are actually two-way in that you ask them a question, they respond to you, they comment on you. It's very personal. So you think of those concert souvenirs, I think of the Warner Brothers studio tour, where you go through and you get to see the couch from Friends and Big Bang Theory and the Batmobiles. There's a whole room full of Batmobiles. At the end, they have a place where you can get on a broom and they green screen you into a Harry Potter movie, or you can get onto a bunch of other things. And then they sell the parents. The kids are now like sold $80 for a photo. I'm in. And the parents are like, damn it, I have to sell my car now. But you get these amazing souvenirs from the amusement park, from the studio tour. And that thing where you are now in the Harry Potter world or the Batman world, like that's your fandom, that's your tribe, that's your Pet Shop Boys, right? You now have this keepsake moment with them for the rest of your lives. And there are people it's freaky. There are people whose entire Twitter account is, Rachel Platten from Fight Song. Rachel Platten liked 3 of my tweets in the last 3 years. Like that's their bio. Those little magical interactions, those moments made their lives. And how long did that take Rachel Platten or her team to hit like on your tweet?
Right.
It cost them nothing.
That's interesting. You talk about all these little magical things, and I think about my 4 kids now at home doing Zoom calls, and they can throw up a background of them being in Harry Potter world. And so now that saves me tons of money because I don't have to go anywhere and pay $80 to have that happen.
That's funny.
Can do it on Zoom.
Right.
So you just saved me a bunch of money. I love it.
Megan, do you want to try to pull out the last question, the aha from Brian?
Yeah, I'm going to take us a little different route.
The aha was Snapchat. I already answered it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to know about problems that are being solved differently. So I know you said you mentor a lot of startups and that you've seen a lot of changes. So I'm thinking about, like, we have today, when you go onto Google, every month it tells you where you were according to your GPS. And of course, those of us that traveled a lot, we're always like, oh, look at all the places I went. Now we're like, I have not moved. But that sort of geofencing or geolocation GPS stuff, you had a good example about geofencing and how it changed based on circumstances. Yeah,
so those Google Maps travel reports you're talking about are amazing because you visited 17 things in February, and then in March you visited 1, and it's super depressing. So don't send me those. Those are just a kick. So there's a company I met in Austin called Scout, and they kind of reinvented geofencing. And you hear about location-based marketing. So their sort of premise is you're in a park, you're within half a mile of a certain Starbucks, and the temperature goes up above 80 degrees. They can push a message to you saying, oh, time for an iced coffee. Buy one, get one if you bring your friend, who we also know is sitting next to you because they've solved all these sort of geo-targeting things on top of Apple and Google's networks for that. And my first thought when they were introduced to me and sort of pitching me on this is, oh, you poor guys. Nobody's casually just popping over to Starbucks right now. You got to put on your gear, your mask, your gloves. You got to bring the sanitation stuff. You got to order in advance. There's no more casually showing up to Starbucks, McDonald's, Target. You don't know what their hours are. Is there a protest outside? It's all just out the window. And they said, yes, that did actually destroy a lot of the big, brand conversations we were having. But then, a few weeks later, the same brand comes back and says, wait, so we need your tools for another reason. Now we need to know when they're showing up to make sure the thing is warm. Now we need to know these other things about it, because there's a different behavior, but the need to know where people are is actually more important, just more important in another way. So it's interesting to watch the sort of pre-COVID, post-COVID stuff. And someday, hopefully we'll be back to more pre-COVID type stuff, because I want to go to concerts. I love music. But it's fascinating to see which people are sort of benefiting from that. The companies like Zoom or House Party. And then in random ways, people that you think their world to be rocked, they're holding on. They're finding new ways. They're like water going around rocks. They're figuring it out. It's exciting.
Right. That's very cool. I love that story.
Before we close out the show, if somebody who's watching today would like to try out Answers RN, your new product, where would they find that?
This is an easy one. This is my easiest answer of the day. So it's answersrn.com, as in answers right now, answersrn.com. And we don't even have a website. If you type in answersrn.com, you go straight to the App Store. We're on iOS and right now for iPhones and iPads. But that's it. Answersrn.com. Take you straight to the App Store.
Excellent. And then
very cool.
Should the program, the app develop as you would like, then I would imagine you would try to jump over to the Android platform. But for now, you're just iOS for the time being?
Yeah, we're doing some really heavy, hardcore lifting in terms of merging the videos. So we're putting on a title. So let's say you do something like Ask Me Anything About Content Strategy, right? Yeah. You get a bunch of questions. As you answer each one, we're not going to show your intro video, which might have been 30 seconds long, on each piece of content. It's too much. So we put a little title on there. We show the question Megan asked. We show your answer. And we put a little ending card on there that points people to you. So there's a lot of video merging and rendering that happens on the phone that was very hard to do. And we will replicate it for Android in the future.
Okay, got it. That was probably one of your lessons learned, I would imagine.
This stuff is hard. Yes.
Brian, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing with us today. And thank you, Megan, for being my co-host, and to the audience for joining us. It was great.
This was awesome.
I loved the examples that you gave. I think they were very practical. And I want to tell our audience that if you've got ideas for a future show, you can go to the attachments section of your webinar viewing panel and submit a webinar proposal. You can suggest a guest, or you can maybe want to be a guest yourself, or if you got a sexy topic you think we should consider, please submit it. You can also send an email to scott@thecontentwrangler.com. Today's show, we'd also like you to rate the quality of the show using the 1 through 5 rating system. Right before you leave the environment today, when you're watching the show, I'll close out the show. You can pop over to the Rate This tab, and you can give us 1 through 5 star rating. And we'd like you to join us next. Oh yes, of course we need 5s. Join us next Tuesday on the 17th, when I will have a special guest host, Joe Gelb. And we'll chat with Chief Transformation Officer Jean Patrick from Cherwell, who's going to talk about how her company unified content and helped propel their productivity and increase their sales. So I think that's going to be a great show as well. Brian, thanks so much for joining us today. And thanks, Megan. Thanks to the audience. Until next time, keep doing good work, and we'll see you
Thanks, guys.
See you again soon. Thanks.
Bye. Ensure your customers find the answers they need with Zoomin. Bring together product content from all teams and sources to deliver a unified, personalized content experience. Check us out at www.zoominsoftware.com.